Пойдем розового вон уже.
Чук-чук.
I know. I could give him my wife. Не знаем, кто выпуск просто мы же как специалисты, то есть мы как переводчики. Это, ну, то есть, когда рядом сидят, вариант перевода, там, на русский, там, это, мы друг другу пишем. You won't be here, somebody else is welcome to sit here.
Is Phil coming?
Amanda. More or less.
Halfway.
Oh, Phil. Yeah, Phil's coming. Uli, Maja.
I wrote the other day.
There are debate clubs, there are different competitions. Actually, shortly about our debate club is very well developed right now. They go to the different international level debate competitions and they actually win prizes. They do participate in extracurricular activities, they do volunteer work. So I do think that our students, and partially most of the students outside of our school, they take classes from our school because they do have to go through history classes, they do have to go through social science classes, they do have to take some language classes. So they also use those skills that they learn from in our classes outside of their extracurricular activities. So I think they apply it everywhere.
Another thing we have is a very active Model UN, which organizes events with a lot of the other local universities, and Maja and I were on it this year. And one of the things I wanted to just point out was there's a lot of professors are involved in the student activities, so I think actually there is a kind of reinforcement of classroom learning in these extracurricular activities that students do, and indeed they are quite, more so than in many US universities that I've been at, are quite active in these organizations.
I think what I'm suggesting, and I know Phil and I have been doing some work on this, is that we need to help them to be able to demonstrate that. They won't naturally do it, and they will need to be assisted in that process to convince skeptical employers that they're worth employing.
So is your suggestion that we help this not situation everywhere? So I think part of that is our responsibility as a university. We need to do a better job of reaching out and educating employers about what our students' skills are.
Also try to foster the student participation in research projects. you may think it's kind of still not extracurricular activities, but on the other hand, apart from acquiring research skills and of course implementing the knowledge into to the original data, the students also take the ownership of the research projects, and that's a huge learning curve in terms of leadership and independence. Even the capstone projects, students have to go out in the regions, collect the data, so it's basically autonomous research experience, which I think teaches them a lot in terms of leadership and responsibility.
Well, I add one more point to that. As a person who is very involved as a faculty advisor to both the Normas Debate Club and the Model UN here, I can really reassure that students acquire soft skills outside the classroom because they have learned with their peers and former experiences that they have to work on their CV. That is building a portfolio entails more than academics within the classroom. So their placement in graduate programs and also professional skills or later on in the career in the job market depends on having such activities outside the classroom. But also we are working with Phil lately on developing a service learning component within the syllabus, which is something that American University practice. We are forging a relationship with local employers to have a service learning tag within the courses. So it's something that our school is really at the forefront of developing at this university. So hopefully there will be developments positive in that area. So.
Certainly welcome conversations over coffee or in the atrium. I know a lot of this involves really technical stuff. The last thing I'll say in response to that question, a lot of times this week we are questioning the value of a university itself. And we're saying with online learning, with books, with MOOCs, why do we need universities? And I actually think this question is the answer to that. The universities are communities, and that bringing students together to work in communities is as important part of the process, almost as important part of the process as the classes that we teach. And so on that very self-congratulatory note, I would like to remind everybody that there is another lecture happening at 5 o'clock in Orange Hall, and that is just enough time to go refresh yourself and make it over there now. So thank you very much. Thank you so much. You're so energetic.
A recent graduate of the University of Wisconsin with a liberal arts education. Really subscribed to what we've discussed on the panel today. It's my belief that I gained a lot of these soft skills and so-called leadership from outside of the classroom experiences. So involvement in extracurriculars, going to conferences, case competitions, those sorts of activities. Are those part of the liberal arts model here at NU?
Добрый день всем. Ольга Лашкарева, Евразийский национальный университет. Я хотела задать такой вопрос. Как часто вы пересматриваете свои образовательные программы, вводите новые дисциплины? Потому что сейчас, говоря о навыках, то есть постоянно все меняется, и это означает ли вы, что практически ежегодно вы вносите какие-то изменения в программу?
We're a very young school, so we don't have a long tradition of how we do review. I think that what I would be looking for is some kind of review every 5 years, a program review, just to have input, so we would have outside examiners come and go through the program, go through courses, meet our students, and see the kind of work that our students are producing to make sure that we're meeting the kinds of standards that we say that we are doing. We have a teaching and learning committee that's very active and that is constantly discussing the goals and aims of our programs as well as the school as a whole. So this is a part of it's a constant discussion so that it's not something that's settled and we'll pick up later on, but we constantly are changing this. We don't add a lot of new programs. We try, but we're discouraged from it. But we do offer new courses. So as we have new faculty, a priority for us is incorporating research into the curriculum so that our students are getting the best and most recent research, which means that we want to encourage faculty to incorporate their research into the curriculum. And when we have new faculty, they bring new research foci and they then create new courses. And when we're creating new courses, we then have new discussions about why we're offering these courses and not other courses. And so, and then outcomes again, the standards that we have within the school and within departments. So this is a constant discussion that we're always having, and in order to keep it fresh and to make sure that we're doing the job that we hope we're doing.
Subjects like introduction to economics, introduction to political science, introduction to linguistics. So we do have main important subjects that they usually never change. But each program has a little bit of freedom in offering additional classes, and that actually gives us a little bit of a flexibility to change the program with the change of the world. So, as Phil said, that if we see that research is offering some new, interesting subjects and questions, and we do offer a new class into the program within that little room that we have in our program. But the core of the program, of each of our programs, they stay the same with us. We teach the fundamentals.
I was just going to add to that. In anthropology, we have 4 main subfields, but recently, with all of the interdisciplinarity here, we find that there's a need for medical anthropology. So in the past year, we've hired 2 medical anthropologists. So while the core of our program has remained constant, we have been able to make these new hires and add some new electives that our students can take, especially those who are maybe interested in health, medicine, and public health.
And explain to them, what does it mean to be a historian? It means that I can wrestle with a complex, ambiguous set of data, identify interesting patterns, and come to a narrative conclusion. That sounds great. It sounded great when David McDonald said it. He has a bit of a historic perspective on what we're doing.
Thank you, Dean Pugh. For the translators, I will try to read unusually slowly. So I'd like to address the question of the role of a liberal arts education. It was my privilege while a professor at the University of Wisconsin-Madison to help launch its project as the strategic partner for the proposed new School of Humanities and Social Sciences. It is a very nice story involving President Barack Obama, a representative from the New University of Astana, NU, New University of Astana project, namely Dr. Erlan Ramankulov, now an adjunct assistant professor of biology at Nazarbayev University, and director of the National Center for Biotechnology, and also me. You can read about it in my memoirs one day. I'm serious, all joking aside, the important point is that the management team for the NU project accepted our proposal that instead of the Department of General Education teaching Kazakh language, history of Kazakhstan, and English composition, the new university needed a world-class school of humanities and social science, similar to the role of the College of Letters and Sciences at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. The addition of the humanities and social science components required for a liberal arts education would create in Astana the basis for a world-class university. Of course, with the upcoming formation of a new school of sciences and humanities, NU will be able to boast a liberal arts school based upon the North American model of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences. The classic model for a university education in the United States is the liberal arts education. We do not train specialists. A liberal arts education gives students
theories, methods, and technical solutions into a cohesive, creative, and attractive, if you will, statement in case of creative projects, a solution to a problem or a question at hand. I think this is an illustration that what we do it could not be defined as training for specialization, and that is really instilling in our students a set of skills that Uli mentioned, centered around critical thinking, synthetic analysis. And the final point that I'd like to mention, which was very elegantly preempted earlier 2 days ago by David McDonald in the story of Tom, the PhD in history, who attacked the 6th Avenue bank officers with a statement that they cannot afford not to hire him because he is in possession of the critical skills. And that's the importance of this new concept of education outcomes for future-ready graduates, which may not necessarily require a radical overhaul of the content and the practice of education. It rather calls for what Crystal earlier today referred to as mindset change, a shift in thinking and perceiving what an undergraduate and graduate degree actually means for its owner, and how does it translate to the needs of a potential employer. In this sense, we need to educate both our graduates, but also the job market representatives as to what essential transferable and university applicable skills and capacities are coded in our lines of BA, MA, or PhD in a certain disciplinary domain, which can be
build upon this. One thing I want to make quite clear at the beginning is that students come to us with a completely misguided, I think, assumption about what history is. And it's not the fault necessarily of schools here, it's true across the board, including in Western Europe and the United States, that high schools systematically lead students to believe that history is sort of the memorization of a series of stale and useless facts. Students are quite shocked to learn that we want them to think and to find information and to come to their own conclusions. So this is one of the things that I think we do, and historians in general in the North American model universities also do. History also, I think, teaches, in particular, students to be aware of diverse practices and to be culturally sensitive. There's a famous quotation by L.P. Hartley, "The past is a foreign country, they do things differently there." And indeed, by studying the past and the diversity of human practices, one comes to appreciate the contingency of practices and has an ability to navigate diverse circumstances. This is one of the reasons why historians are often hired as consultants for international companies, particularly.
My name, by the way, is Pugh. I'm the Dean of the School of Humanities and Social Sciences here at Nazarbayev University. And I have with me a large group of colleagues who I'll introduce in just a minute. And what we would like to do today is simply to share our experience in the School of Humanities and Social Sciences with providing a very broad liberal arts foundation education for our students at NU. So we want to share with you what we do and why we think it's so useful for students who are interested in entering this very volatile job market that we've been talking about all day, and we'll be talking about tomorrow as well. I will keep quiet for most of the conversation. I'll invite each of my colleagues to speak for 5 minutes or so, each one representing a different part of our school. And when they're done, we'll invite conversation from the audience. We really want to open this up to have a conversation about what we're doing, what your questions are, how it might be applicable to you and your situation, anything else on your mind. We have until 5 p.m. to do this. So, I'd like to start by introducing my colleagues. The program has not quite correct information, so I'll go around the room. I'll start here. We have Dr. Maja Savevska. Dr. Savevska is an assistant professor in political science and international relations. Next to her, we have Dr. Andrey Filchenko. Professor Filchenko is the department chair for our Department of Languages, Linguistics, and Literature. Right here on my left is Dr. Uli Schamiloglu, and Professor Schamiloglu is the department chair for Kazakh language and turkic studies. On my right is Dr. Phil Enns. Professor Enns is our Vice Dean for Academic Affairs, and so he is in charge of sort of oversight of all of our curriculum, including academic integrity issues. Here at the other table we have Dr. Curtis Murphy. Dr. Murphy is an assistant professor in history. Next to him is Dr. Galiya Sagyndykova. Dr. Sagyndykova is an assistant professor in the Department of Economics. And next to her is Christina Pugh. And Christina is an instructor in the Department of Anthropology and Sociology. So, welcome. Okay, so in order to organize the...
Also has the promotion of critical thinking skills embedded within each course. In Madison, I've always told my students that if my course did not focus on critical thinking, I
process and present enormous amounts of material. It's a reading discipline after all, and one of the things you have to learn when you have to read a lot is how to read quickly, how to find out what's important, how to disregard what is unimportant, and how to present that information to someone who is very uninterested in that topic in a very
Interestingly enough, of course, we know that it studies the decision-making process of individuals, firms, governments. But it can also be applied to the small areas. Apparently, recently I learned that there is an association of the economics of wine. So there is actually economics of wine. So economics of sport, economics of everything. So anywhere you look, from the very serious question to the very minor question, you can apply economics. So that is why I believe that everybody should know economics. In terms of skills that we teach, of course, all the skills that we've been discussing and my colleagues were discussing, critical thinking, analyzing data, gathering it. But I think the most important thing that we teach our students be very imaginative. So we develop their imagination. I think that's the one skill that no robots, no artificial intelligence will be able to do. So I think that's the main thing that we teach here in EHELF.
Hello, I'm Christina Pugh in the Department of Sociology and Anthropology, and I want to talk a little bit specifically about what our department does. But first I want to say a little bit about the doing of the liberal arts education. Many of you may be familiar with it, but some of you may not. So when students come to us, they have a lot of freedom, maybe more freedom in choice of classes than they would have at other institutions in Kazakhstan or elsewhere. So they come to our school first as undeclared. They might think that they want to do econ or poli-sci or history, but in that first year we don't allow them to declare themselves. So they have to take a little bit of everything and find out if they're really suited to what they think they want to do, or maybe they're more well suited to another path. So in their majors, they take about 72 hours in the major, maybe a little bit more, and then the rest, there's a lot of freedom to explore these other classes and to learn and be curious about other things. So within our majors, we have 2 degree programs in anthropology and sociology, 1 in each. And even within the major, they have a lot of freedom in the classes they can take to get knowledge in these 72 hours. But they do have some things they have to do together as a cohort. And capstone, this is very important for us in their 4th year. They take this capstone experience. But before they get there, they have to develop skills to be able to do that successfully. So all majors have to take a theory course together, and then some.
In my view, the fact that Nazarbayev University is an international level, English medium, research university based on the credit system makes it a unique educational institution in the post-Soviet space. There is no other comparable institution of such quality in the
of mathematical problem solving in Alice's Adventure in Wonderland. Barely comprehensible, translating Brodsky's English poems into Russian. The Spanish language tourist guide to Astana. A cinema of deception, playing with narratives, metaphors in one Kar-wai, chunking.
Working together as a class, and it has both a quantitative component and a qualitative component. So, yeah, this is the first step. Then, after they complete this class, they take further methods classes with faculty who specialize either in qualitative methods or quantitative methods. And finally, they have this capstone experience. So in this, they get to propose their own research project. They start from the very beginning and work very closely with a faculty mentor to actually do the project. And like LLL's example of topics, we also had a very wide-ranging areas of interest of our students. Some of our students worked with NGOs in town. One of the NGOs or companies was Green Tall. Another student did a project about online gaming and these professional esportsmen. So it's just really varied. The students get to have an interest, develop their interest, and see their project through from start to finish. And we, in our department, help them develop the skills that they need to remain curious and to be able to ask a question, find results, and present their results to the public in a way that's understandable. And I think this serves them really well for the future job market in whatever career they might end up in. So some of our students go directly to the workforce, but many go on to graduate school. Some in sociology and anthropology, but many go to other programs. We have quite a few students who have gone on to public health, and I think one thing about this freedom in the courses they can take, it's really nice. A student will often come to me and say, I am interested in going on to a master's in public health. And because there is room in the degree, we can take all of the classes that they need in the major, and then also fit in necessary classes in biology or chemistry. There's room to explore these other interests and make them a very well-rounded student. We also have students who go on to graduate school in education or public policy. One of our very first graduates ended up at a PhD program in Cambridge in education. So we, I think, are doing a good job in preparing our graduates for the job market and also to go on to further graduate education. So that is, I think, about all I wanted to say, and I guess, Phil, do you have something?
to go last because I think that my topic is probably best understood in the context of everything that's been discussed already.
We got together, we met, and we agreed on what every program in humanities and social sciences needs to accomplish. Every program will achieve that the students are creative, that they are critical thinkers, that they have basic numeric literacy, that they have basic historical skills, that they are skilled communicators across languages, etc. So we laid out a map of what those skills are and those characteristics, and then we designed our courses around those skills. So I can guarantee, because Phil has done the hard work and Duncan has backed him up, that every class that's taught in the School of Humanities achieves certain specific outcomes. Doesn't matter what classes the students take, they will learn those. Then we designed some specific courses that have a few other outcomes.
Institutions that is trying to cultivate individuals who can adapt rather than who are simply taught to do something. So finding information, processing information, presenting information is something that we all attempt to teach our students. And it's something that the School of Humanities and Social Sciences in general attempts to teach all the students. We all just sort of do it from a different way and a different perspective. And I think that's one of the strengths of this.
For putting together such a wonderful forum and for inviting me to share my experience from the team. So today I would like to also defend the thesis that more specialized and vocational training should come after liberal arts education. And I hope I defend it successfully. Before we start any discussion of how our curriculum is to prepare students for the career of the future, we have to actually have an overview of how the labor market of the future looks like in 10, 20, or 50 years. And I would like to start with noting that the technology revolution would bring about a fundamental change, and that has been a topic of research for a while, and the verdict is clear. Automation, thanks to advances in artificial intelligence and robotics, would for sure make many skilled jobs obsolete, especially the low-skilled jobs, but also even skilled labor forces at the danger of being replaced by automation. So only few careers would become robot-proof. This statement has to be qualified, that this disruptive effect of automation would not be evenly felt between advanced and developing countries, and the research shows it clearly. And also, automation would not be the only exogenous force in town. We will have other processes such as aging population and rising income, such as 1 billion people joining the consumerist class in the next few decades. Those are important parallel processes that will actually offset the labor demand shortage. So we will have actually increase for certain kind of labor. So it doesn't mean that automation will bring a sudden and significant job shrinkage. Actually, we are seeing and expecting an emergence of new kind of careers. There will be influx of new occupations connected with automation. So there would be really for sure room for human creativity in this constant influx of new occupational categories. And this demand for human labor will continue in areas where robots are actually not as good as humans. And that's when it comes to creative, emotional, and cognitive skills. Robots cannot still be humans, contrary to modern computational skills. So what follows if we take this as a starting premise is that we have to let go of the notion of career for life. And get into a new occupational paradigm where we need to be constantly acquiring new skill sets. So if this is our starting premise, then we need to prepare students for jobs that do not yet exist. And we have to update the curriculum so as to engender graduates with the appropriate disposition. Graduates with better ability to adapt to change, graduates with real meta skill. And that meta skill is the ability to learn how to learn in terms of whole life cycle. And I think that we do this well at my school at SHSS. We have thrown out the idea that we need to match a degree with a single job. This is an idea that we need to dispel in Kazakhstan. Yeah, there is no degree matching a single job. And the sooner we get rid of this notion, the better the future. And as a member of a very vibrant SHSS and political science faculty community, I can say with a certain level of confidence that we are indeed doing our best job at reverse engineering syllabi, so to nurture such graduate attributes and transferable skill sets. So our faculty undergoes continuous teaching training by renowned professionals in the field, and we have instituted a process of peer review in order to ensure internal quality control and monitoring. So we are matching learning outcomes with assignments and assessments to get to those graduate attributes that are desirable for the future labor market. And lastly, I would like to conclude by pointing to one FT survey. So FT is known for skills gap survey, and the latest 2018 skills survey interviewed surveyed employers and asked them what kind of skills are needed. So the most needed skills were apparently the soft skills, the kind of that our school and my department definitely works on. The most difficult skills to recruit, employer noted in 2018, were ability to influence others, strategic thinking, drive and resilience, and ability to solve complex problems. And the least important skills noted by employers were applied micro, ability to use social media, accounting, programming. Those were not that useful. Those are on-site acquirable skills. What is actually needed is the soft skills. And I think that we do our best to ensure that we deliver on those soft skills for our graduates. Okay? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Andrey Filchenko, and as Dan mentioned, I present here the Department of Languages, Linguistics and Literature. So I think for the last 3 days, what can be identified as a leitmotif and a very consistent issue is the rethinking and reinventing, not so much the idea of the content and the practice of higher education, especially the degree training, but also the perception of what was called today, earlier this morning by Crystal, the change of mindset, both in our graduates, the holders of these degrees. What does it really mean for them to have a degree in languages, literatures, and linguistics? But also to the job market, because there's a certain degree of education, of volume of education that needs to be done to actually educate the job market representatives as to what does really mean for them to see a new graduate with an arts degree. So that's what I wanted to briefly discuss and contemplate on through the perspective of our area of expertise.
Could you summarize what you just said in Russian? The translators were having trouble. I think they're back on now, but if you could just summarize the first bit.
Okay. То, что мы можем определить за последние 3 дня как определенный лейтмотив и общая идея дискуссии, это переосмысление высшего образования, в том числе тех степеней, будь то бакалавр, магистр или доктор, которые мы присуждаем, что они значат, что они значат как для выпускников, которые получают эти степени, но кроме того, что значат эти степени для работодателей, что они получают, получая или нанимая выпускника, который обладает степенью, допустим, языкознания, литературоведения и иностранных языках. И то, что мы слышим, это обсуждение того, это не столько изменения в содержании и практике образования, сколько восприятий, какие навыки и умения являются содержанием вот этих степеней, которые мы присуждаем. И, собственно, об этом я хотел немного порассуждать в оставшееся время. What we also heard quite recently was actually two brilliant speeches by our graduating students who, one after another, delivered an idea that is probably honey to our hearts at the School of Humanities and Social Sciences, and that resonates with the mantra that we keep repeating over and over, that most of the more serious challenges that face Kazakhstan and the region are not really technological or scientific in their solutions, but rather humanitarian and social. And of course, the skills and the capacities that we probably have to aim to instill in our graduates have to be of this similar nature. And it was very pleasant to see that our students, our graduates, subscribe to this. So I would like to make an analogy to what I think could be a comparison of the old model or concept of university education versus this new idea that Maja was discussing, the set of critical skills and capacities found in some basic knowledge. So the outdated concept of education for the specific rigidly defined function, a diploma or a specialist, is perhaps essentially akin to the concept that we all learned to despise in recent years, and that is teaching to a standardized test.
In the basics of macroeconomics, microeconomics, market dynamics, all of those things. In history, they need to know basics of historicity and heuristics and things that I don't fully understand. In anthropology, they will understand qualitative analysis and quantitative analysis. And political science, they will understand the basics of diplomacy, governance, etc. I won't list all of them. The point is that each of these programs has built into it these specific outcomes, and then they design courses around those outcomes. The content of the courses, it might be focused on Kazakhstan, it might be focused on North America, it might be focused on the 14th century, it might be focused on the current time, but it achieves those outcomes. And when we are approving courses for our students, it's those outcomes that we are most interested in. And so this is why we say a student can achieve pursue any of these courses, and we know that they will have achieved what we think is important for them to have a basic education that will allow them to move between careers throughout their lifetime. In addition to that, though, while we like to make a big show of how flexible our curriculum is, we know that when a student has taken a degree in languages, linguistics, and literatures, we know that actually that student has a degree of expertise in linguistics and languages. We know that a student who has a degree in history is an expert in the use of historic techniques and certain kinds of historic fact and information. So I just want to add that in there to make sure that everybody understands that there's a method behind this madness. And I think that one of the conversations I'll be happy to have with people if we don't have time today, certainly today, but also later, is about how we've constructed those curriculum. And I would invite you to Pester Duncan as well, because I think he is really the expert who has mentored all of us in understanding how to do this. Okay, with that, now I'd like to turn to a question and answer session. The format here is designed in this beautiful room so that we can have a conversation. And I would invite you to ask questions in any language, at least in Russian or English, and probably we have a Kazakh translator. Most of us at least understand Russian if we don't speak it very well. So, please. Yeah, you'll have to, and our volunteers and our translators who've been working very hard and very fast to make sure that this will be an event that everyone can participate in. Thank you guys for all that hard work. Second, I need to make an organizational announcement. Those of you who are at the morning session will recall that Dr. Jonathan Wetzel, the Managing Director and Senior Partner for McKinsey & Company, was not able to speak this morning. He has arrived, his plane has finally come to Nur-Sultan, and he will be speaking immediately after this event at 5 o'clock in Orange Hall. So everyone here is invited to Orange Hall at 5 o'clock to hear Dr. Jonathan Wetzel, Senior Director at McKinsey Corporation. The Orange Hall is where we met this morning, so you should be able to find it again, but if you can't, our lovely volunteers in the red shirts will point you in the right direction.
Humanities and social sciences, in addition to the natural sciences, means that Nazarbayev University offers its students the essential elements of a liberal arts education. Even the new School of Engineering and Digital Sciences will not be able to get international ABET accreditation without offering its students a certain number of credits in the humanities and social sciences. Just a few more remarks. In my own department, which is Kazakh language and Turkic studies, we have also shifted to teaching how to write critical essays incorporating an argument, even in the new 2-semester sequence on academic Kazakh language. Our upper-level courses taught in Kazakh are also focusing now on academic content and critical thinking skills rather than on language. Nowadays, in the United States, we say that each student should prepare to have several different careers. While liberal arts education gives the students the capacity to learn, to continue to learn and adapt over their entire career. This is why so many CEOs of top United States corporations have a liberal arts degree, and why so many corporations want to hire graduates with a liberal arts education rather than a business degree. This is how Nazarbayev University is replicating the kind of education you might receive, say, at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. For this reason, I am confident that it is precisely because of this valuable liberal arts component that Nazarbayev University will be recognized around the world as a great university. Thank you.
Just introduce yourself. In the back of the room is Duncan Priestley, who is Nazarbayev University Head for Quality Enhancement, Academic Quality Enhancement. Is that the right title? Something like that.
These are the our program of capstone projects. If you know, all the graduates are supposed to culminate in the BA program in the independent research project, which they...
And more specifically than that, how when we teach history in Nazarbayev University is something which can help students navigate this change.
Course that we're proposing that ultimately has to be reviewed within the school by all the faculty, then by Duncan's office, and ultimately by our academic council, which includes academic leaders of all of the university. We include in the proposal a map of not just the outcomes that we want, but also how we will test them. So the general answer is that we lay this out in the beginning, that we say, for example, so we have to be able to define what we mean by leadership. And I take your point that everyone can't be a leader or nobody's being led. It's sort of like all children are above average. But I think that we would approach leadership as something more fundamental than being in front of people. Right? I think we would approach leadership, for example, as Dr. Enns mentioned, in terms of operating with integrity in everything that you do. So being a leader means modeling the values of the university, modeling the values of your culture, etc. So in a particular program, what we might say is that we want the students to show that they can independently execute the principles of the course. That would be a kind of leadership, I think.
But I would also add that what we're encouraging our students to do is to identify issues that are relevant to both Kazakhstan and the world around us, to analyze those issues and the problems, and to come up with some solutions. So it may not be directly measurable of leadership, but the idea of being able to identify problems and then study the resources and data that surrounds it and come up with an alternative and have it tested would be one skill that would be related to leadership. So in that way, I think that we're doing that. So I know that's happening in sociology, that they have these projects. And I'm guessing that in most of our departments, we have some version of that, identifying problems, studying the context, and then coming up with solutions. And we would see that as part of leadership qualities.
Just to jump in, I think
teach people to think, and that we indulge in technical training elsewhere. I refute that completely, but I'll move on. In a skeptical job market, how will our graduates be best able to demonstrate to employers the knowledge, skills and attributes that they acquire?
So this question about how do our students every March. So to be honest, I come from a tradition where it's assumed that this is the normal mode of education, and this conversation.
or later doctors or theologians, but they were learning rhetoric, composition, grammar, what we would call the basic skills of the liberal arts. And this model was expanded further in the Renaissance to incorporate all sorts of other humanities, as we call them today. And this model survived in the United States and Canada and in a handful of other universities in what we call this liberal arts model, which aims to teach people to be broad and intellectually dexterous, to deal with a variety of life situations and to move in a variety of different careers. It is precisely in Europe and in the Soviet Union where this model was inverted towards a more skills-based model, which exists still today, not only in the post-Soviet space, but in Europe as well. It's rather unique to have a university where you are taught an education rather than technical training. And it turns out that technical training is not always providing people with the best resources to get a job. In fact, there's been some recent studies to this effect that certain more narrow specializations often leave graduates struggling to find a job, whereas humanities and social sciences provide people with a greater set of tools, you might say, and a kind of
ideology in training. So I posit that perhaps this could be a good analogy to view the different takes on what should be the new concept of education. So another example, illustration of a wide applicability of a set of essential skills and capacities centered around on obtaining skills and critical.
Trying to encourage students to make history something that is more applicable to the real world, to work in fields like library sciences and museum studies and popularization of academic knowledge. We're piloting the project this year, so we can tell you how the results go, but we hope that it will lead to more engagement with the broader community. Finally, our department in particular has engaged in quite a bit of cooperation with other universities in Kazakhstan, particularly ENU, Karaganda State University, and Al-Farabi. We've hosted a number of conferences on various topics. We've brought professors and students here at Nazarbayev University to participate in seminars, and we ourselves have gone to a number of seminars at ENU and Karaganda. So we hope that this will create a basis for exchange of ideas, and so that people can see our methodology, and we can hopefully improve or help improve the academic climate while we learn from our colleagues about what they're doing as well. Thank you.
My name is Galiya Sagyndykova, and I'm an assistant professor here at HSSS at the Department of Economics. So I would like to talk about economics. It's a very special social science within our school. Why it's special? Because we incorporate as the soft skills, and we do a lot of math. So I think that's one of the things that our students, when they come to our university, they have a misperception of economics. So they think that economics is accounting or management or business administration. And it's true just partially. Sometimes when students come and they ask me, what is the difference between the business administration and economics? I draw them a very simple analogy. So you see on one side is an engineer. Engineer knows how the machine works. Engineer designs the machine. Engineer knows all the principles that machine works on. And we have an operator of this machine. So operator knows only which button to push in order to get which kind of material or a good out of it. So economists are engineers. They know, they build models. They know that what kind of question to plug into this machine in order to get very objective answers. And business administrators are actually operators of this machine. They use all the models that economists are building, and
I think it's important for students to be able to demonstrate that they have these skills if you're going to say they're enlightened, critical thinking, citizens of the world. And the one example that sticks out to me as very difficult is leadership. I mean, leadership crops up in graduate attribute lists and university mission statements perennially. And yet it seems to me the opportunities to develop leadership, I mean, if everyone in your cohort is going to be a leader, who exactly are they leading? And how do they practice that leadership? And how do they manifest it?
You don't answer that, do you? You don't answer that.
We tell the students, you find out what you want to do, you go and do it, and then you have to be responsible for coming up with the solution and standing for it. So I think this kind of autonomy and trust is one of the elements of creating leadership.
I would also say that the fact
we want to be successful in the future, and which major is going to be the best one to do it. They're already skeptical that SHSS is a place to find that. It's, a better job market for engineers or something like that. But I tell them that for me, it doesn't matter what major they study in our school. It doesn't matter what degree they pursue in our school. I am confident that they will produce they will develop the kinds of skills that they need to be successful in any career they choose. And so it's not a matter of choosing which one for success. It will be rather which one do they find most appealing, which is the degree program they enjoy the most. But what I want to emphasize to the students is that regardless of the program, regardless of their major, regardless of the courses they're taking, in all of their courses, in all of their programs, they're developing these skills that have been discussed by my colleagues. They're being pushed to be imaginative. They're being pushed to be inquisitive. They're being pushed to get data, to find data. They're being pushed to learn how to analyze it, and then to think critically about that information. These skills are being developed in all of our courses, so that when they graduate, they are a kind of person because they've developed these habits. I understand that earlier in the sessions there was mention of of a mindset. That's a bit too modern for me. I'm old, and what I would like to suggest is that these habits that they're developing produce a character, a kind of person, and that when they graduate, they are a kind of person that allows them to be successful in the future. Now, as anyone who has read their Aristotle, they'll know that the enemy of character is vice. And here I'm tempted to go into a lecture on character and vice, but I'll restrain myself. The challenge to developing character, especially in our institution, is misconduct. It's the issue of cheating and of lying. And what I've tried to develop in my years in my position is to develop this understanding, or to encourage understanding that cheating is to undermine their ability to become a successful person. So when students first came, when I first arrived 7 years ago, students expected that when they were admitted into the school, they had pretty much earned their degree already. All they needed to do was show up, and after 4 years they would get their degree. They didn't have to actually work. They didn't have to actually learn anything. That changed pretty quickly, and they had to learn that they did have to work. The second step, though, was that they felt that they could find shortcuts to doing that hard work of developing habits. And that would be cheating. So we were very strict in our school regarding academic integrity. The purpose of academic integrity is not only to catch students who are cheating, that's the punitive or punishment side, but it is rather to try to encourage students to do the work themselves so that they continue to develop the habits that they will need to be successful in the future. And this is how I've tried to develop our understanding of academic integrity. It's not about trying to catch students or trying to punish them. It is rather a part of the larger mission of developing a certain kind of student who knows how to do certain things and does it. They engage in the habits of being inquisitive. They're engaged in the habits of being analytical. And they do it themselves rather than taking a shortcut and having somebody else do it for them. So I see the role of maintaining academic integrity as a core part of the mission of our school, supporting everything else that the hard work my colleagues are doing. My job, when I'm doing a discipline hat, or wearing that hat, is to make sure that the faculty are being successful in helping students develop the skills that they will need to be successful in the future. If we can develop that sense of integrity in students, that they can do it themselves and they don't need to draw on other sources, they will be a kind of person, they will have a kind of character that will allow them to be successful in any chosen field. And they will have many jobs, they will have many careers probably, but we hope and we believe that the character they're developing in our school is of a kind that will allow them to be successful in those careers. So that is how I see the connection between academic integrity and the hard work that my colleagues are doing in their classrooms.
Okay, thank you everybody for those insightful descriptions of your programs. So if I can summarize very quickly, I'd also like to add an uncharacteristic note of rigor for me. We've heard here that the basic idea of the education that we provide in all of our programs is that the students will need flexibility. Right? If there's one thing that has come out of this conversation, it's that all of our programs are incredibly flexible. Everyone's probably almost tired now of hearing us talk about the future job market. Maja cited some good statistics. that will require students to move from career to career, new skills, all of that. I won't say it again, even though I just did. We heard from Uli that this is the design. When the founder of the university visited the University of Wisconsin, the idea was that this school would ensure that all graduates of the university are ready for that unpredictable, flexible job market. What I think might have come across is that in all of this flexibility, I suspect there are questions about where's the rigor, right? How do we ensure that the students are getting something useful in all of this? There is such a thing as too much flexibility. And if the students really just come in, study whatever they want, how is that useful for them, right? And so what I'd like to just very briefly comment on is the structure of the programs that all of my colleagues have described, and why it is that we can say, in some ways, it doesn't matter which discipline they study. The reason for that is